Conference will now be recorded.
Okay, welcome everybody. I don't think the mic is on. Are you putting it on? Oh yes, there we go. Welcome everybody to this work session of the City of Port Orford's City Council on January 22nd at 5:30. For a work session, I guess we should still start with the roll call and the pledge, and then we'll get into our work. So I'll start with the roll call. Councillor Brennan.
Here.
Councillor Burns.
Here.
Councillor Pogwizd.
I'm here.
Councillor Rask.
Here.
Councillor Lovendall.
Present.
Councillor Webb is not here yet. We also have with us from staff tonight, Administrator Radcliffe, Recorder Harrison, and Police Chief Hank Hobart. Good to see you here, Hank. Thank you. Okay, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, wonderful. Well, as we start tonight, I want to remind everybody that, it's a work session and that I think our goals tonight are for a robust discussion about this topic that we're going to be having, which is the public safety levy, police levy. From what I've heard from our veteran counselors that have been on long, and also from our League of Oregon Cities trainings, is that if we do want to move forward with passing a police levy, we all need to be on board. Like, we all have to be very dedicated and agreed on what the course of action is. And so the way, because we can't have one counselor saying one thing and another saying another, we have to kind of be committed. So discussion is the way we get to what our common proposal is. So that's kind of the first goal. Tonight, what I would like to do first is share what the Finance Committee has put together. You might recall last fall, I talked about starting a committee for the police levy, but I quickly realized that the very first step of that is to figure out how much money we need, and it's the financial question comes first. So that's where I pulled together the Finance Committee, which was Tim and Gary and me, to pull information together and start thinking it through. And so we will be sharing with you tonight some of the stuff we've put together, so we all have the common understanding that we've had. Another thing I think we want to do tonight is ask questions or identify any questions that we don't know the answers to, but that we want to know the answers to. We have Melissa and Hank here tonight, and we're also, we recently contracted with the Kaitolas, our new economic or financial consultants. So if we have questions, we can, Melissa, I'll ask you to keep note of them, and then we can, get the answers to those. I'll mention that in the materials I've given to you tonight, all the numbers come from past audits, from Ann Heath's projections and her numbers, and also from some of her recommendations about what we needed to be doing, as well as our just best efforts as counselors, which, as you know, we are not professional financial people, but we had some pretty good experience and did our best. So that's where it is. I expect that from what the Kaitolas have told Melissa, they will have more information for us by the end of the month. But time, depending on the timing of a levy, which we might discuss tonight too, time is potentially very tight. If we wanted to get onto a May ballot, we have to have all the language and everything by the end of February. So with that in mind, I wanted to start by going over some of these. My thought for tonight is we'll start by sharing some of this information, and then we'll get to the discussion. Okay. And the first thing to share is if you go to the page that has, let's see, I need a single page one just so I can hold it up. if you go to this page that says steps to advance, this has on it 7 steps. And tonight's meeting is really only going to be dealing with 1 through 4. 1 through 3 is really this getting to the brass tacks and the financial stuff, like what do we need? And then 4 is figuring out the timing. And there's some new information today about that. So today's meeting will pretty much be dealing with 1 through 4. We will not be getting into ballot language or any of that kind of stuff yet. Okay. So with that, let's see. Why don't we begin with just the problem statement, which is the sheet that has the graph on it. And you can just, we can take time to read it, maybe ourselves. And I will just say some of the key things that came out of this for me was that our levy rate today is lower than it was 12 years ago. So we may be the only city in the state that is in that circumstance. So that's kind of a fundamental structural issue. The other fundamental structural issue is if you look at the graph, you can see kind of costs versus levy revenues. So we've always been set up to take in, well, this is only the past 5 years only, but you'll see the bottom line is the costs greatly exceed the revenues. That means we've been in the position of transferring money from the general fund, from other funds. And that means that we basically are chronically underfunded all over the place. And that's why we're also missing some other fundamental city services. So that's a quick overview of that. If you turn the page, we thought as a committee the best way to get through the options is we kind of came up with 2 scenarios to help us think. Scenario number 1 is that we think about how much does it cost to maintain all of our current level of police services, and start with like the amount of money we need and what would it be to take a levy to get to pick a levy that would fund that. So that's scenario 1. And that is the scenario that we recommend. We put in here also a scenario 2, which is basically to keep the costs, and I shouldn't have even said the costs, it's more like the costs to residents the same. So that would be like keep the fee and the current levy. So we'd be capping the revenue, or we'd be keeping the revenue. And if we did that, we would need to do a reduction in police services. So that's kind of where we're at. And I guess what's not in here is we've realized, and this is one of the things that Ann Heath identified and wanted us to work towards, is that we can't keep taking money from the general fund to fund the police, because we just have had so many unexpected costs. And we're now, lots of things are different than they were 10 years ago. We used to have a lawyer that would just charge $12,000 a year. Now we're paying by the hour. We used to have, the audits have doubled in price. We're no longer able to find an in-house financial person, so we're having to pay consultants. So there's a lot of our basic operations for the city right now that we have to pay more for. So anyway. So those are 2 scenarios. And then I'm going to, I think that's the meat of the discussion is like, what do we want for our future? But I wanted to shift to the other pieces of paper. So if you go to the one that says steps to advance, and somehow, Melissa, I don't think you have the back side of this. Under additional information, is an explanation of like how taxes are kind of created and what goes into them. And I know a lot of you guys are Oregonians from Oregon. Some of us moved from elsewhere. Some of us may have come, some of us may have never really paid attention very closely to taxation policy. So I want to just go over a few very basic things so you understand it. Tax is based on assessed value, so that's different than the market value. The assessed value of all of our properties was capped in 1997 and is allowed to go up 3% per year. So it doesn't go up when property values go up, it doesn't go up in the same way. It's a different number. The current base rate for the Port Orford city property tax is $2.27 per thousand. That is a permanent rate that was adopted. It was in place in 1997. So when whatever the measure was, 5 or 55 passed, 50 or 50, I forget the numbers.
I think it was 50 because measure 5 was earlier.
Okay, it cemented that in. That is a fixed rate that can never change at this point. It is, the average in Oregon is more like 335, so ours is 227. To rectify that situation, because it's a very low rate, communities often have options, tax options or levies that they put on for other things. Some cities have park levies or they have library levies. Ours is a special district. Many have law enforcement or public safety levies. So that's like the normal way of doing business, even though it's a little bit odd. As I mentioned, the current police levy is $180 per thousand, lower than it was 12 years ago, and that can change. Our overall city tax rate is the base rate plus the police levy. It is now at $4.07 per thousand, which is considered extremely low from a national perspective and from a state perspective. So that's just some basics. You'll see that the overall assessed value in Port Orford is what is taxed on. And so we get from our taxes about, what we impose about $726,000 per year. We get about 95% of that. This is the projection because not everybody pays. And then finally there, you can see how the levy rate translates into revenue. So you can see like our current rate brings in about 300,000. And I'm just like rounding it to, 299K, just because that's the realm we're in. We're just kind of talking about this. And you can see how when the levy rate goes up, how it increases our revenue. So if we start with how much revenue do we need, then we can pick a levy rate, and then we have to think about, well, what can our people afford, or what services do they want, and all that kind of stuff. So that's all background. From the work that our committee did, we kind of came to the realization that we're putting this up as the proposal, scenario one, that if we had to come up with about 600,000, a little bit more, which is what the full cost of the police department would be, is to our best estimations. If it costs 607,000, then we would need to go for a levy of $3.40 per thousand. So that would be increasing from 180 per thousand to 340 per thousand. Not quite a doubling, but a little bit less. with that scenario, the public safety fee would sunset. We'd have no further transfers from other funds. And so we would have a fully self-sustaining police department. Like the funds would sustain them and we wouldn't have the chronic underfunding of the rest of the city. That is kind of like the vision of like, if we could do that, it could work better. Yes, Perry.
So when you say the public safety fee, you mean the one that we attached to the water bill?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Okay. And so at the end of that other sheet of paper are some numbers that compare the public safety fee to the current police levy and to the future potential police levy. So with the current public safety fee, the costs are spread across about 728 utility accounts. Everybody, so those are the households that have a utility account, pay $144 per year. And so properties that don't have a utility account don't pay that at all. A public safety levy, because it's a property tax, is spread across the 1,263 property tax accounts within our city limits. And so the cost of the tax is spread out on all of these taxed accounts based on the property values, not on the number of accounts. So I'm just spelling this out. I'm trying to be super simple in spelling it out just because I know not as, so forgive me if you know some of this stuff already. But what this translates into is like right now, if the assessed value of your house was 100,000, your current public safety levy is $180 per year. But if we are to go to, let's say, the 340, if you skip down, your tax would increase to a 340. Your tax increase would be an additional $160 per year. So compared to the public safety fee that we're now charging, it's only another $16 per year for people that have $100,000.
you mean per month?
No, per year.
Really? Okay.
Because it's spread out over more,
More property.
instead of 728 or
It's over 1,200 and whatever, which I think is really good news. It doesn't necessarily have to be that expensive. People that have more high valued, expensive property pay more than others. So, that may be enough for me to say right now. I'm just going to say a few more things because I just can't. I feel like I've dug into this and really tried to learn a lot, as our committee has too. We started in October and we've been thinking about this. As I mentioned, the assessed values of properties is much lower than the actual market value. So I went online and looked up a lot of assessed values, and I just want to share some of them with you. I looked first at the mayor's houses because I thought, well, people might know mayor's houses. So my house is assessed at $137,000, but the market value is more like $300,000. Mayor Pat's is assessed at $102,000. Jim Auburn's, who's the big house on the hill, was assessed at $1.27 million. So that gives a range. I've looked up some of your places too, if you want me to tell them to you.
Sure.
Were you interested? Sarah, not everybody. Sarah, yours is assessed at $238,000. Perry, yours is assessed at $66,000. And Gary, yours is assessed at $259,000. And yours I didn't do because yours is way more complex.
Yeah.
But this gets to another really weird thing, which is when the property values were capped. They were in the middle of assessment, and so there's tremendous inequity in how people are taxed for property taxes. It's a side story, but just to tell you, there's a lot of people that are paying whose properties are under 100,000 in our community. So anyway.
That's part of the problem is county has not done its job and we're suffering greatly for it.
It's not because the county hasn't done its job. It's that the cap that was put in means that it's never changed.
Well, I believe, I think once they reassess your property, it goes up from 66 to, because they did my property and mine did go up significantly. I think when they reassess it, it goes up.
I don't think so. It can't go, it doesn't, let's put that as a question.
because if you like do an add-on or something and didn't get a permit,
No,
Yeah.
I'm talking
and then,
about.
no, I'm saying that increases the value. Well, the assessor will come out and say, okay, your taxes go up.
Yeah.
Because now your property's valued more.
Yes.
Yeah, that's common in all jurisdictions.
So that's a different thing than if
Yeah.
your just property is just sitting
I thought
there.
when they reassess, they raise the values. And that's why a lot of people in the neighborhoods get irritated when one property does get assessed or somebody comes in new and pays a higher amount because they use that higher amount in the scenario.
From what I've understood, I've talked to the assessor a couple of times about this over the past year because I've tried to understand it. That's not my understanding, but
Okay.
let's go back and ask again.
Okay, that'd be good to know.
But I think if you do the improvements, like you've
Yeah,
said,
right.
then they come to
That's-
look at it, then
yeah.
it would go up based on the improvements that you've made. To get to Counselor Pogwiz's point, though, I have called, and again, they're supposed to do, with the county, they are supposed to come check every 8 years, and what we found was they are behind 16 to 20 years. And so I think that's what he's trying to say is
Yep.
that could be part of why our assessed values in our community are low, because that's
I
But-
believe that is true. I
but
mean, at
when-
some point,
I talked to the assessor and she actually did not, she said something different than that. She said that the law has changed. They are not required to go back and reassess
Okay.
a certain amount of years and that she feels like they are caught up, is what she
Okay.
told me.
uh,
So,
so they're not caught up. There's many people that haven't even had their homes assessed in Port Orford in 20 years. As a matter of fact, we were here probably 17 years before the assessor came and reassessed our property.
So I think this is a side question, but
Mhm.
let's not go down it.
Yeah, no, I
I
get it.
talked to the North Bend city administrator at one point about this because we had a previous meeting where we all got riled up about this issue. And I brought it to a League of Oregon Cities meeting. I brought it to I serve on the Coos Curry, Douglas County Community Development Board or whatever that is, CCD. I brought it up and they just kind of laughed me and were like, yeah, no, that's not it. It's it's like the juice would not be worth the squeeze. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the larger structure, I guess is what like.
correct. That is true. That is
David No
true.
Iron kind of
Yeah.
like, ha, ha, ha.
Overall, that basically, one of the main issues that the League of Oregon Cities has taken our dues and all the dues from around is to say, because they have a legislative branch, to look at our interests. And their whole point was, until this gets squared away at the whole entire state level with property taxes and all of those, then it's not really going to change. We're just going to all have to kind of do what we're doing and make do with what we have and put levels of service to what we can afford. And that they had talked about, in order to make that change, they think it would be not this next presidential election, but the next one that they could do it, because a lot of what they need to do and what makes these things hard is you have to do a lot of public outreach and you have to do a lot of public education, which is part of what the mayor's doing right now, is to help educate us and whoever's listening to know how our system works. But they've said until fundamentally it changes at the state level on this big stage, that we're going to have to keep doing what we're doing here, which is trying to, find the
Cobble
coins and
together.
the couch cushions
Yeah.
to
Oh, I
put it
agree with
together.
all that 100%.
Right.
And
I just would like to know,
Yeah.
I know it can go up 3% per year.
Per year, that's it.
But I thought when they reassessed your property, it does go up, but I
Oh,
could be wrong.
We'll
but
ask.
I
We'll
do want to know that.
These are exactly the questions we want to,
Yeah.
the things that occur to us are the things that people are going to ask us. And so we need to educate ourselves. And this is like a whole realm of stuff. So good questions.
Yeah,
Um,
good to know.
And so with that, Hank, you passed out this piece of paper to us. Do you want to like tell us a little bit about what's on this since you've also shared this with us?
You asked about it yesterday during a phone conversation. So
Yep.
This is, only took me a few minutes to build, and it's
Oh, great. Okay.
ended up being 2,809 total calls last 12 months.
Mhm.
And the daily call average for all those 12 months was 7.48 calls per day average. As you can see, some of the months, particularly summer, are a lot more, 9.47, 8.29, 8.97. And then we get into winter, things slow down. Right now, it's particularly slower because those calls actually also include CAD numbers, which are self-generated, like, for instance, traffic with our seasonal now traffic person not on board, but there's not that much traffic anyway, so it is what it is. But in the summertime, when he's here, that person is here producing, the calls just go up. So
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I had to, I had asked Chief Hobart that because I wanted to make sure we put in the number of calls that our officers are responding to every day. My guess was 5 to 8, so I was pretty close there, depending on what's going on. So anyway, one last thing to just say is after reviewing all of this stuff, I just have had this pang of sort of concern that we're not on a good path right now. I mean, this came up last year, if you recall, when Ann Heath was doing the budget, and we had the budget for this year or for last year, and then there were like zeros in the future for some of our funds and departments, and it was kind of like, what are we going to do? And last year we were putting a Band-Aid and trying to fix things that had gone awry before, and now we're heading into the new budget season, and we're up against this cliff again, or
Still.
whatever, we're heading over. So anyway, to me, it just seems like, oh my gosh, we have to try to face up to this question of what do we want to do in our community? What can we afford? What do we want? And what's it going to take to get ourselves on a better financial path? Because sewer, water, public safety, other things in our city government too, but are like super fundamental to our well-being and to everything else in our community. So anyway, and underlying that is sort of the financial underpinning that makes it all possible. So I will shut up now and ask first, does anybody have any questions about any of this stuff that we've been presenting?
I just wanted to add a couple of things to what you mentioned. I took notes. In addition to the items you mentioned about costs going up, how much did the sheriff fee go up on us? The dispatch fee, I'm sorry.
I wish Dina was here.
Okay, anyway, so that's one of the things that went up that you didn't mention.
At least it went to a more structured system in
I
the
think
last
so.
few years, so it's.
Yep.
I want to say it increases 3 or 4% per year, and we agreed upon a set of years.
Right.
What are we at? Melissa, is it like 25,000, 26,000?
I'm looking to see what
She'd know,
we're,
or she'll be able to find it.
Yeah,
So
'cause
what
you
is the fee? I mean, what does it cover?
What do you mean?
Dispatch, anytime a
so
citizen calls for a water leak, that gets bundled in on that too, but, or,
Oh.
theft or burglary.
911.
After hours?
And
No.
all hours,
All dispatch.
24/7, 365, we have to deal with dispatch, just like the fire department,
Right, right.
public works, when there's water blowouts, things like that.
So
So
the
they're
number,
our hub.
so
There's
the
not,
nu-
Yeah.
there's not the only,
Doesn't go-
they're the only ones who are 24-hour, as far as office staff, their dispatch center, that's it.
right.
So we live by them daily.
Okay,
So in
it's
here-
for you to take the calls and disperse the calls?
You or any citizen calls 911, that's where it goes, Gold Beach.
I just wanted to
Yep.
be clear.
Mhm.
And so for that, this year, we had budgeted Curry County 911 dispatch service at $34,677.
There you go.
So almost $35,000 for that. And that It used to be, as I understand, it was charged almost like a per call situation. Right.
750 or
That
something.
wore them out.
Yeah, and
Right.
so instead of doing
Didn't work.
that, it's just now a flat
Yeah.
rate that we pay. So that's why if someone calls for water or calls for a situation, it's okay because it's all, we don't get charged per call like it used to be. So again, $35,000 approximately.
And another fee that's gone up significantly over the years is our fire contract. It went way up right
Mhm.
before David left, so about a year before David left. So that's another, so, everybody's asking, well, what's changed? How come we're where we're at? All these items add
Mhm.
up, and that puts us where we're at.
They come out of that $2.27.
That's out of the general fund.
Yeah, out of the general fund. But we as a city have to pay the fire department more to, for their coverage. So,
Right.
and that was a whole contract negotiation thing as well.
Which
So,
we just did again because that happens. We negotiate in December and
Yeah.
come through. So
But that's at a 3% increase per year or something like that.
correct. Because we did it with the CPI.
When we
3%.
negotiated it though, a few years ago, it was a significant increase over
Mhm.
what it was.
Because they hadn't kept up with increases for a decade or
They hadn't
more.
asked for anything, yeah.
Mhm.
So anyway,
I
for
remember that.
whatever reason, nobody did anything wrong. It's just the way it works out, so.
How much is that?
And I can't remember the
looking
number.
at it.
And I don't know that she can pull that, but she might be able
You
to.
can, I think.
60 or 70.
Oh, well, you just did it. It was close to.
I want to say, this is my over 50 memory, like 72,000?
I'm thinking it's somewhere
72
around.
ish.
I remember.
I'm
something like
thinking it's
that.
in the 70s.
Yep, it was
Yes.
low. I think it was low
The
70s.
budget is 74, next year 76, so
I think
yeah,
it was in the
75.
30s when we did
75.
the negotiation, so
Oh, man.
it was significant.
It was ugly,
Well,
ugly
it is ugly,
negotiation.
but it was really nobody's fault. It's just, they got to a point where their costs are going up, just like, our costs are
Absolutely.
going up. So anyway.
So some of the other things I'll just mention, I mean, these are good questions, is like what goes into that cost? Like what's in that fund? We talked about dispatch being a big one. You know, our police in the past couple of years, I think, I don't know if it was last year, since Melissa's been on, certainly have gotten the message of like, do not spend a cent more than you need. And so things like,
It's always really good about that, though.
we-
I'll say.
we haven't, like, it used to be apparently that there was like money set aside for vehicles like every 3 to 5 years. So that hasn't happened for about, I think, 3 years, Hank? Or Tim, do you remember? Or
At least a couple.
3 or
At
4?
least a couple,
I
yeah.
think it's been
Mhm.
3 or 4. I think it was before I was counselor. There hasn't been anything like that, but there will probably need to be something like that at some point.
Yeah.
But in terms of big ticket items, there's like insurance and bonds, there's the PERS for our staff, the health insurance.
Court-
Health insurance did go up too quite a few years ago. It went up
Mhm.
real significant, I recall, but I don't.
Right now, health, dental, life insurance is at $82,000.
And it looks like there's about $12,000 that's just for like all of the, what I would call the law enforcement software type of like, so when you have a traffic stop and you know how the officers, I'm going to tell you it from my, the databases that the law enforcement needs to access, we have to subscribe to. So
Lexapol.
Lexapol and Justia or whatever it's called. So anyway.
And the court costs.
They're costs that we can't cut, and they go up.
And I was just saying, and we have court costs on top
Oh,
of
yes.
everything.
So that's the other thing, and
So
that's,
we have reduced that in that we have only had Judge Milliman, who's our municipal court judge. He comes now every other month during the winter months because there's not as many tickets being produced because again, there's not as many people, not as much traffic, all of that. And so that's one of the places that we scaled back on. It's not a lot, but those are the types of things that we're really taking a hard look at to say, where are the places in all of our spaces that we can tighten up on while still, keeping things functioning. And, we're one of the things, and Tim talks about it with David Johnson, when he came back to help us out after a number of years ago, a lot of those reserves were used up. So, a lot of those sort of shock absorber reserve funds were used to get us through some hard times in the last number of years. Council did not raise rates during COVID and during even after that. And so there were a lot of places where the city kind of took up the slack on that. We didn't rent out the community center for very much. A lot of the things, we had very low fees for burn permits and planning time and all those sorts of things, while prices rose. And so we're now at a point where we don't have those reserves because they were used up the last number of years ago to keep everything sort of moving forward. And now we're at the point where we don't have those shock absorbers for those rainy days and those bumpy times. And so that's really the overall piece of this is, when you have financial issues, you either have to raise revenues or you have to cut expenses. And so we've been trying to do thoughtful, creative ways in that to do both of those things. But what I can speak to, and if John Isidore was here, he would speak to, is, a lot of the things that we have had with the aging antique infrastructure that we have is it's expensive to run those things and to keep that moving in the right direction. And so we aren't dealing with a system that kind of runs itself. It needs a lot more babying along. So we have had increased overtime costs. We have had that water plant having to be run through the night. We've had to have all those things just to keep the same level of service, which is most of the town turns on the water and the water's there.
But Melissa, I'm gonna actually try to shift us back to say one thing about that, which is the whole kit and caboodle of water and sewer is sort of in a whole different scenario, because that is in a case where we have user fees. The people who use the water and are part of on the system pay operation and base fees. Those were initially based at some point on a rate study that was tied to the reality of how much water is used and all that jazz. So when it comes to city budgeting, and if like you look at our budget, if you read through our old budget or audits and stuff, those costs are kind of put into what they call like a business, kind of part of the pie. And all the other city costs, the court, law enforcement, and then the admin is kind of put into the other part that has to be funded by the base rate property tax.
And also with those, so water is basically a business in and of itself. That's why those rates go up as the costs go up. And so that they're self-sustaining in a lot of those ways, which is why we don't have a water fee on the water bill, right? At this point, that's sustaining sewer, sort of, right? I mean, it's limping, right?
Well, it
But it's a
doesn't
lot
cover
closer.
any infrastructure is the problem.
We've worn down the reserves. So
Right.
There's no,
We need to, I'm going to propose that those reserve accounts be put back on our budget. They should be.
They're still there.
They're
They are
I
there,
know,
but
I believe they need to be back on there, and we collect those every month on every water bill. If we're
and they're
not,
going in there.
if we're not going to collect them, then we should change the structure of the water bill, and it shouldn't say reserves, right?
They
If we're
are-
not going to have a reserve account.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is we still collect those, they still go in those reserve accounts, but instead of buying like the more like forward-thinking infrastructure things to do that, that's what's dealing with operations still.
Okay.
because we've had errors and problems and then we don't have money. So that's where we have
But
to
at some
take it.
point, we're going to get money. Okay,
Yeah,
we're going to get a
absolutely.
grant. And what they're going to require is they're going to require to see those line items.
Absolutely.
And we need those line items back.
Amen.
So
Yep, agree
I
with that.
don't think those two line items confuse anybody that much personally.
They're there, I think.
They're there.
So anyway,
But basically the water and the sewer bills need to go up.
but we're not going to talk about that right now. This is like a whole other topic. So
And I brought that up just to say, they are standalone. They're kind of like their own individual businesses. They're doing their own thing.
So yeah, we're talking about this other side. That's another whole topic, and we can talk a lot about that too. But what we're trying to talk about now is how are we going to fund our police department into the future? And the reason, as I've explained how the tax structure is, when I first got here was like, why isn't this just rolled into operations? Why do we have to every 5 years go back and do this? And it's because it's that history of the way taxation works in Oregon. There's a base rate, and anything we want to do beyond that, we have to have this local tax option, and we have to come back and redo it again and again. So, and that's why we're always talking about the police levy and this department in particular, because that's what we have a public safety levy on, as opposed to, anything else. So we're not picking on you, Hank.
Well, it seems like
Or parks
that
on
it's
the
only
streets.
to do the 340 per thousand, it's only bumping people's cost at $16 a year. So
Really?
it seems like it's an easy
160.
sell if we can explain that properly.
Well, it's not.
An additional 16, Is what he's
per
saying.
100,000.
an
Yes.
additional
value.
16 is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Compared to what they would be paying now.
With the fee.
For 100,000, every $100,000 of assessed value. would
Every
be another
$100,000.
$16.
That's where the confusion
Really?
was. right.
Yeah, because, if you do a math the other way, if you say at 200,000 and you do it at 340 versus 180, I mean.
Then
the
it's
difference was
$32
like-
more.
It's what?
Then it's $32 more. So every $100,000 of assessed value, it's another $16 a year.
Right.
Because it's spread out over the 1,263 instead of 728.
And we're
We're getting,
Yeah.
More
Because it really
people
doesn't have the, well, it does have the
contributing.
value of your home is in the equation.
or just the bare property. There's
Yeah,
all these
right.
there's almost half bare properties that aren't getting any fees other than the $1.80. They're not paying the $12 a month.
Correct.
They're paying the 2.27.
and
Plus
this.
the 180.
In the comparison numbers I put in there, it was compared to what we have now, which is the levy and the fee. So, that's why it's only an extra $16 for 100,000 is because we're now paying a levy and a fee. And so if we went directly over to repeal and replace a higher levy, that's where it would only be $16 more per year per $100,000 of value. So it
By
might,
eliminating that service fee.
the public safety fee, yeah.
Taking everything into account.
Yeah.
Because we're going to, so we would take the $1.80 away.
Mhm.
We would take away the public safety fee, and then we start at 340 per thousand. And then that's how she come up with her equation.
That's the comparison.
Wouldn't it be three? Oh, that's where you come with three.
Well, I just used 340 as an example. There's other examples on the paper.
I just chose 340. I used 340 for all of the examples, so they were comparable, but there are other rates, that we could choose or, anyway.
But the 340 was closer to the approximate
Amount.
600 that
We
to
think,
keep our current level of
Policing.
policing.
But they could,
That's on top of the 227.
yes, it's on top of the 227. So if you go to the top of this page, it says, with an increased levy rate, the overall tax would be $5.67 per thousand. But it's still, because the base rate doesn't go up, it still is going up by the same amount. Because it's only that one part of it that's going up. It's still only a total of $16 more per year per 100,000.
So if we had to go with
Than-
their 227 rate, we would not even have a police department, period.
Yeah,
If
right.
we had to go with only that rate that we get, property tax rate,
Yeah, we couldn't do that.
$2.20, we wouldn't be able to operate. There's no way.
Right.
So.
and it's not such a clear thing to try to explain to the residents.
Difficult.
And that's
So-
going to be the key because so many people, especially people who are on vacation homes, are going to say, forget it, I'm not paying. So we're gonna have to be really,
Well, they have a vacation home and sees someone break, I mean, they get the benefit of the police even though they're not there.
right.
Right.
They don't care.
But they're not voting if they have a vacation home and they're living in San Francisco with a second
they're
home
not
here.
No, second, you can only vote in one area.
Okay.
So, I mean,
That's unfortunate for them, but that's just the way it is. It's just like a business owner in town that lives outside of town does not get to vote either on there. So
That's good.
it's,
If everybody knew what we know, I think it'd be easy to
I think it'd be
pass
an
it.
an
but-
easy pass, to be honest with you.
If
If everybody knew what we know.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it.
yeah, I know.
It's, I mean, Ann did her very best. Gary and I suggested a one pager and she did her best and we're down to a front and a back and.
I'm down to a four
another-
pager.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard for me.
And that's the hard piece, though, is that you're going to have, that's where the public education, you're going to need time to be able to explain it and time to be able to have public forums and open, town halls and things to talk about this so that people do understand. Because even when we tried to do that with the fee and with everything else, we still have people that are coming in like, what are we doing with that? And what happened with that? So I think that that's where that time limit of, if we want to get this ballot measure on and it written well and correctly so people understand what they're doing. And then also you folks are going to have to be out talking to your friends and neighbors and canvassing and talking about it, whatever, because they're not going to necessarily just immediately understand. It's going to take legwork. And that's the hard piece of this, and saying, okay, when do we think we can lift this by?
City staff has to stay neutral. They
Right,
can't-
we can't,
They can't have.
city staff can't do anything in it.
They can't, I mean, they can answer a straight out question that a citizen may have if they come to the window, but they can't push
Pitch it.
one way or the other
Right.
for it.
But we can.
We can.
That is that's your role. Mhm.
So I want to just maybe, since we have Hank here, I know people would ask things like, why, why do we have as many officers as we have? And could we get by with fewer officers? And I know the answer because we've talked about this before, but maybe you could just help us to understand why, because it's a very good question. We're a very small town. People might ask, well, why do we need a police department like we have? Other towns might not have a police department like this. So can you just help to explain how that works and why?
I feel like I've been through this so many times, it just grates on me, but the bottom line is.
Can you understand why I have to ask you? Yeah.
I'm going to answer your question. If anybody's been here since my time, 14 and 15 and 16 were off the hook crimes. And trying to do that with the 3 people we had when I inherited this from Marvin was ridiculous. I kept losing bodies and it wouldn't work. So historically, when this 4th position happened around 17, that made all the difference in the world in being able to police the bad guys out of our area. And to this day, many of them are county's problem. They live in Langlois, they live on Elk River Road, they live Sixes. A lot of them just aren't here anymore because of the efforts of the crew, the 4-person crew. And going backwards would be just crazy, in my opinion. And the other part of that component is the amount of staff we have is a minimal amount. How do I word this? This is a basic minimum to try and cover a city like this 24/7, 365. Granted, we do that with a lot of on-call, but everybody, including me, we share that on-call equally. So to run a 24-hour department, what is Bandon doing right now with about 7, I think?
6.
And we're doing it with 4, 24/7. Like I just said, I'll reiterate, is part of it's on call, but the calls don't stop, especially in the summer. So if we have not enough staff to handle 24/7, 365, which means somebody has to be tied to dispatch for a certain amount of time every day, every night, when there's not a body on duty here. 4 is our minimum. It would be insane to try and do less and keep the experienced people you have. You've got a group of people now that I'll go out on a limb, that we have the most experience per 4 of anywhere in the county that I'm aware of. Mark's had a whole career. I've had a whole career. James has had a whole career, even though he's seasonal. RJ is around his 9th or 10th year. Andrew is about his 5th or 6th year, 6th year. A lot of experience, not replaceable. So if you start cutting back on the amount of staff we have, and then you try and police at the same level we're doing now, and then springtime, summer hits, people are just going to leave. Like they did before when I first took over. I lost body after body, was in perpetual hiring mode, going with the 4th position, which when we did that and I pushed it, it was a lot of city meetings that included input from citizens. I had a lot of people here. Some lived in the county, some lived out of the area, or excuse me, some of the cities, some lived out of the area. And it was a pretty unanimous, let's do it. And it's worked well, but we're right on the edge. If I lose bodies, people are just going to walk, as my fear. I really want to skip towards something briefly. You're the boss, but you're number 4 on this list here. Didn't I just hear today that is going to be now voted on this coming May at the ODOT?
Well, we didn't get onto that. We're not talking about the timing yet.
That's
Yes.
the last thing on your list, but I think that kind of changes our time perspective on all this conversation.
Well, it does change our time perspective, but I don't think, I mean, I think this is an important conversation to have right now. We'll get to that. And what Hank is referring to is today there was an article that said the Democratic leaders in the state legislature are pushing to put that petition that about the transportation hike onto the ballot in May,
The repeal.
the repeal. But it's still up in the air because the Republicans in the legislature don't want it to be on May. They want to have it to be on November.
The citizens don't want it either, that I'm hearing from. So.
Well, but it's the matter of what time.
When?
Which is it going to be?
No, they want it on there, but they want it on there in November.
I
Well,
wish it'd be November. That'd be better for us.
well,
So we could
do
lock
it
in May.
So all I'm saying is there's a chance that it may not be on May.
It may not be on May, but it's looking likely that it probably will be on May, but we don't know yet.
We
And
should know
so
more within a week.
we should know more within a week. But the reason, I mean, this just came out today.
Mhm.
Melissa and I did a little bit of preliminary. The other questions is what are the other ballot measures locally that are happening? And so we did a preliminary inquiry to the school district, and I put in an inquiry down to the clerk of saying, are there any other measures on yet? And there aren't any for May yet. There may be one for November. So there's pros and cons with the timing. The benefit of going in May is that if we can figure out where we're at in May, we'll have the money in the budget for next year. If we had to wait until November, we're going to be like, we're going to be really,
July, August, September, October, November, will be, yeah.
I'm
Only halfway
honestly,
time by the time you get to it.
I'm terrified that the Kaitolas are going to look at our budget and be like, you guys are going to run out of money by the end of the year. I mean,
Well, let's wait and
You know,
see what they say.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying that's why my inclination would be, was going to be to try to do it sooner rather than later. And also that if we don't do it in May, we could go back and try again in November or do something different. But that the timing question is outstanding. I mean, we're not going to have a clear answer. As Tim said, we'll probably know more in a week. But the larger question remains, how do we all feel about going forward with a public safety levy at this general amount, knowing we might have to adjust it based on what the Kaitolas say, or knowing that the Kaitolas might have more information or insights to us?
I have a question for the chief. So does our our seasonal traffic officer, does that position pay for itself?
Absolutely during the summer months. Right now, he's been laid off over a month now. I've never done it that way before. It's always been a half-time year-round thing since I hired him in 2017. He's actually filled in a couple times when I lost an officer. I would have him fill in under that budget and full-time against what he wanted to do until I hired an officer.
What's his season?
So we've never done this before. This is all new. We just did this. We laid him off a little over a month ago, and I'm really not sure when to bring him back. Honestly, this is new to me here.
And we laid them off as a cost saving measure,
Yeah.
as part of our, trying to,
Assuming the winter months revenue was going to be too low, it's almost dirty in my mouth to even say it, to keep him on, but I get it. So we did, and he's okay with it. So I don't really know when to bring him back, to be honest with you. That's a good question for everybody to think about.
April.
Sometime when traffic is heavy again and you think spring is here and going to stay.
April is when that time happens. You can see that in your calls. May, June, July, August, September are your highest call months because there's more people in town. That's when your businesses are always going to do, those 5 months are their best months, okay?
Okay.
April is sometimes the early people are starting to come and show up here. So you're starting to see more traffic in April, but you're not really seeing that traffic until the May month. Heavy.
Sounds logical.
But I think April is probably the month that he starts paying for himself quite well, in my opinion. But
It's a good best guess.
I'm doing that from a business, what I see as a business owner, my
Yeah.
perspective on business.
Yeah.
And travelers and those kinds of.
Great guess.
They don't come in full force, but they start coming.
Because it's my understanding that since the lanes were changed, that there are less speeding tickets issued.
Heck yes.
by far.
Heck yes.
I took
That
that,
dropped everything exponentially.
that actually it's not on here. It's an important part of the story because there were years when we had revenues that were like hundreds of thousands of dollars of citation revenue.
Right.
And it's not like you guys were going after people that weren't speeding and going to run me over. Cause I can tell you, I used to cross that street all the time. Back when before I was mayor, I was a better pedestrian than I am now because now I'm like driving everywhere to get to the next meeting. But, yeah, so that's a big part of the,
Whichever of the two lanes going either direction was open was the lane they would speed in, whether it be the right hand or the left hand. They didn't care. And these guys were out there to get them. And, we used to have revenues of $200,000, $300,000 at the time.
100%.
So
but we still have,
that now.
I mean, I think it's now gone down to something like, it's more like 60. I have the
Yeah,
numbers
like
here
60 is kind of
somewhere.
what's in my brain, but it's less than that. I mean, it's around that. So that, and not that
Pays for it.
and the whole point is, and the
It was
police
only
aren't
half
supposed.
time, so it more than pays for that one person.
I have, it's the last audited numbers, and this is a projection, was 110,000.
That was what we had.
Oh, that was a
That was
projected.
what
So
the projected from
yeah,
here, but it
So the
wasn't.
actual audited number from 2024 was 76,000.
I think that officer alone wrote upwards of 300 tickets. if
Yep.
I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
Mhm.
Does,
So I have a question for you, Hank.
Mhm.
Because people ask, what is encompassed in a call? Is that 911 calls? Is that just regular, just not, not
The
calls?
way I track them is the activities. So when you get a council report, I didn't bring a
Yeah.
sample with me today, but I break it down into calls that were requiring a full investigation and go into the district attorney's office. And then I also have a line for CADs, which are usually handled and closed out during, whether that call took 5 minutes or 3.5 hours to,
Right.
but if it's just CAD worthy, not going to the DA, I track those too.
can you explain what CAD is, just because maybe not everybody.
Everything we do with dispatch generates a CAD number. So for the most part, unless I'm going out to just get fuel or just drive down to the port and look at something. But if I'm doing like an area check or above, it always has a CAD number. So that's included in the call totals for the day, as well as traffic stops are a CAD number worthy. So that way the information from that particular contact is tracked, which is a good thing. You need to, because down the road, if somebody complains, you need to be able to look at the facts and deal with what exactly happened. So
Is
for
that-
instance, last month, your calls were 172. Those are, every one of those represents a CAD number. That last month's council report. And then you break it down also to 5.06 was the amount of calls per day that happened.
But are those dispatch, calls to dispatch that you
Both
get?
ways. They can be initiated by us. It says right on the CAD whether the call came in on 911, whether it came in on a non-emergency line, or whether an officer initiated it. An officer's driving down the road and feels the need to stop and talk to somebody in an area where there was a burglary the night before. So any of those types of things are worthy of a CAD number.
And it includes traffic stops?
Yeah. Mhm.
And does that include, and that includes area checks, like when they go
Yeah.
drive down and look at the,
You start those things, those activities, you don't know exactly what you're going to find. RJ was on an area check a month ago and he found a stolen bike in the check. So you don't really know it. So dispatch needs to be able to track everything, start to finish, the amount of time you took on it, et cetera. So the answer of your question, it can be any number of things on calls, including stuff that blew up into a huge case. Today, 2 officers were dealing with helping the ambulance crew and the fire department on a very ill person. So that's a CAD for us. That's an activity for us, but it ate up a couple hours of their time.
Can I interject here too?
Mhm.
Even though a call might only be 5 minutes,
Mhm.
you know, where they're actually in contact, it's the time after that that a lot of people, that the public doesn't have a perception or understanding of, is the time to file the reports and write the reports and all of that. All of that stuff goes into the time that, you know, these guys are working, you know, I mean, you know, to sit there, you know, if you get 5 calls in a day and every one of them requires a report, the report's generally 20 to 40 minutes, depending on the severity of the situation.
Depends on what it is, whether you're dealing with a dead body, natural causes, or maybe not for sure, or crash vehicles. I mean, some things just take, some things, a couple calls in a day eat up your entire day. Other days, not much going on, and you might handle 6 or 7 calls that day that were just minor, mundane, annoying. So it's all over the map.
One of the things that surprised me were when we have a death or a suicide, how much time it takes of the officers, because they have to wait there until somebody comes from the morgue. And sometimes if they're on another call, to the best of my knowledge, there's one in Bandon and one in Brookings, correct? And I don't know if they both come our way, but anyway,
They do.
I could, you know, they can be there 3, 4, 5 hours waiting for it because they can't leave the body.
Yeah.
You know? Some of the stuff that happens, nobody really knows about. We don't, you know, we don't see it a lot.
Well, one of the things I thought of this weekend, I mean, I kind of think of, you know, we do, meaning we, the royal we, our city does a community policing model. And part of what that means is paying attention. And this weekend, when some of us were painting, Officer Brennan was there and he got a call about a bicycle stolen and tricycle of a child. And he said, just, gosh, I bet, you know, it's like right off the bat, he thought, I bet there's 3 people I think of, or 4 people that might have that. And I thought that's kind of amazing, because what it reflects is that our officers know the people in the neighborhoods and where they are and all those kinds of things. That's sort of a community-based knowledge that can then help solve a problem. And that's not really like something that's written in a report or documented, but it's something that comes from experience and knowledge. But anyway, it's
Stopping and chatting
intangible.
with somebody they stop and chat with enough people over a year, they're made all those contacts, and it helps network all of your,
Yeah.
everything that happens.
Yeah, we don't say it often enough. It's pretty impressive what our department does, to be honest with you. We all got stories like that. We've had the same kind of thing. Somebody came in our park and stole something, and at the time, Officer Perry was on duty. He come by and I showed him my Blink camera, and he goes, "I know who it is right there," and I'm going. He left immediately, boom, and he caught the guy at his father's house, and it wasn't a big deal. What he took wasn't a big deal, but that's how I think they keep people in line. Sometimes somebody might not go to jail, but just getting talked to and showing up and like, how did he find out that quick? It was me, kind of thing. It's weird.
And sometimes they have great humanity. I've witnessed one of our police officers who dealt with someone decompensating, and it took a lot of time, and he did an excellent job, and it was really impressive.
And I think that's another one, is the mental health breakdown situations where that I don't know, you could tell us more details, but from what I've understood, that sometimes if officers have to respond to somebody having a mental breakdown, that's a pretty intense and difficult thing. I remember hearing a story about somebody who was in Rays, and the bystander was trying to deal with it, and I forget if it was Mark or who it was that had to go in and just like really talk this person. It took a lot of time and effort, and as you're suggesting, humanity and care to figure out how to help that person. So there's situations that require a lot of professionalism and experience.
I was going to say they're skilled
Skills.
professionals, and that is
Yeah.
important.
Skills that they may not have learned when they signed up for this job. They learn them on the job, and they work them with
From each other.
Yeah, compassion, and it's tough. It's a tough gig.
But does anybody else have any though? I think this is like a good time for us to just think, what are our people? Like if we are going to go out and say, we're going to need to do this increased levy, people are going to ask us the hard questions. What are those questions going to be? And so we have the answers for them. Like, what do you think people are going to?
I think it's going to be the same kind of thing we're doing right around this table right here. Everybody's going to, try to answer those questions, because not each and every one of us will have the answer to a particular question.
Right. Well, I think trying to think them, yeah.
I believe Hank will probably have to answer some questions too, because he has knowledge we don't have.
Yeah.
So.
I have a fiscal question for you guys that I was just thinking about reading this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please do.
Is it wise to try and structure this? And I'm asking this as someone who doesn't know. I'm just asking you, is it wise to structure this where 100% of our levy, our funds come from a levy, and still not a portion of it from the general fund? And the only reason I'm asking this, we've had levies initially fail here, and then a month or two later, we pass them. So in the meantime, I realize there's still tax money to deal with from the prior levy, but would it be wise to have some of our money still coming from the general fund? So if you do end up with a failed levy, you're not having to scuttle everything in the meantime while you're actually trying to repass a more palatable levy.
Well, I think what we will do is, from the preliminary work, our committee did a little bit of work on like, how would we do a ballot? We did do some of those, we did a little bit on some of those later steps. We would do a repeal and replace so that we would not get rid of the existing.
No, but we're pulling, what, 100K out of our general fund?
Well, right now it's to do 140. So that's what was coming out right now is the 140. And then in addition to that was the extra 100 from the $12 public safety fee. So that was part of it to do that. And that is.
I'm just asking you, as I'm not a levy expert or a budgeting expert at all, but would it be wise to have some of that still coming out of the general fund and structuring this back just a little bit cost-wise to the public as a security blanket.
Well, I think the reason to not do that is, in my mind, is that this is the place where we can raise a cost. We can't raise any other cost. And so like the more that we're taking out of the general fund to move over to the police, which we've been doing to the tune of $200,000, $300,000 over the past several years, that means we don't have money to do things like we realized this weekend when we were painting that the roof over Melissa's office is like sinking, so we don't have any money dedicated for facilities. That should be coming out of the general fund, but we don't have it. We don't have enough money right now to pay for the financial person. So that really should be coming out of the general fund. So I don't think there's a risk at all. I mean, it could be in the future, like if we were to pass this 340 and then in 5 years, they would say, oh, we don't want to do that.
That brings
That's
me to my
where-
next question for you. Should we be educating the public to the 340 or whatever it is you guys decide on? That's got kind of a built-in thought process of a yearly increase in it, like a 3% in it anyway or something. I don't know how you'd word that.
Well, the thing is, Hank, is that this is the benefit of it also being the property tax instead of the fee, is that the amount will go up 3% per year because of the property values going up 3%
Right.
per year,
Five
not the
Kind of got a
rate.
built-in CPI.
547 and 50. I was just looking it up. I remember one of them started at around late 80s and it was Measure 5 started. It was passed in 90,
Mhm.
early 90.
And I think 50 was that later
And
one.
47 and then 50 cleaned up 47.
Yep.
But Hank, we can
96,
ask that question of the Kaitolas, maybe put that in there. Ann
I don't-
Heath, I remember was saying we wanted to try to, when she set it up for us, the budget projections, she was saying you really need to move forward towards, you can't have the general fund being kind of robbed, like the rob Peter to pay Paul situation, and that we needed to move away from it. That's kind of what she was advising. And if you recall, we also had things set up in some weird sort of ways. Like we had all the TLT money going into the parks fund, which meant then it couldn't be accessed. And then we had to access it. We were kind of paying for an officer through parks. And I mean, we're kind of getting things into a better order. I mean, Ann started us
Down that path.
down that path, and hopefully the Kaitolas will help us to continue righting the ship,
So
Um,
that safety net that Hank's looking for, though, I get it. I totally get it. We're
Yep.
covered on this
Yep.
particular repeal and replace because
Yep.
if we failed, we still have the
Mhm.
$1.80. But in the future,
Right.
It would completely, I think, jeopardize our whole police department almost instantly.
Yeah.
So I would almost recommend that we figure out a way to keep $100,000 set aside just in case that happened, especially in a levy year, because if it did happen, it would give us time to go back to,
Mhm.
put it back again.
Mhm.
So sort of thing, instead of losing our whole police department. Because once these guys don't get paid, obviously, I mean, everybody supports their family. They're going to be looking for new work and
Mhm.
the police department will immediately dissolve is the way I see it. I don't know, Hank, is that,
That's the way I see it too.
it is a really good point.
But the money's just not there.
Well,
Yeah.
we say the money's not there. If we are successful in passing this in May, we have 100,000 that we budgeted for next year that goes into that.
Well,
could-
we didn't budget that. Ann Heath, we budgeted it for this past year. We're on a new budget now. I mean, Ann did a projection to kind of help us start thinking 5 years in advance. But there were a lot of unanticipated expenses this year.
That would be the risk of losing our police department.
Yeah,
So we either build a fund to secure our police department if the levy fails, or we take a chance, we roll the dice and wake up one day, the next day, and the police department's gone. That's a real deal. That's the real deal.
Or we don't pay the public works overtime for the times that they've had to go out. I don't know, there's been quite a bit of expense just keeping the water going.
Right, which.
And that
I
came
somewhat
out of
have a
the-
solution to
that came
as
out of the
well,
general
and I
fund.
don't know if people want to listen to that, but that'd be a future meeting.
But
Well, I
that's
think,
where
let's
the
see if,
money's
let's
going.
put it on the list to
No.
ask the Kaitolas if there's a concept to,
Doesn't make sense to keep some money from the general fund in case this doesn't pass.
yeah. And then the
That's
other,
question to ask.
the other piece would be, for example, like we do with everything else, do we budget in to the public safety, a reserve fund?
Mhm.
So there's a little bit of money
Contingency.
that's a contingency that
So it's not 340, but 350.
that's being built
However
up
we
all
do
the
it,
time,
however we do
that
it.
could help us.
Yeah, it's the difference between having a police department, and not having a police
But-
department almost immediately.
Yeah, well, the other thing.
Same thing with the sheriff department. It was exactly the same. Because all of a sudden when that levy didn't
Mhm.
pass, boom, we didn't have deputies.
Well, the other thing we can do, or that we need to do, I think, moving forward, is to be cognizant of when the elections are free, so we can not have to pay extra thousands of dollars to have an election,
7,000.
and to put them on so that we have a little bit of a, like, grace period. So if it doesn't pass, we have another chance.
Yeah.
The other thing that we know now is we can institute a public safety fee, like in an emergency way. So that is something that I don't think past councils were aware of, that cities are doing right now, because there's a lot, we're not the only cities that are in these dire straits. And where people are, there's a lot, cities are where the rubber meets the road. Truly, everybody's life really depends on the city operating.
Cities and school districts are in the same boat.
Yep.
So, we kind of have to make these things work in a way that other levels of government, I mean, not that other levels of government aren't very important too, but
I just like the idea of getting back into saving some money,
Yes.
have as a backup, whether that money gets used in years 1, 2, 3, and 4 in water or sewer or whatever, but on year 5, you better make sure some of that's there for the levy in case.
Yes,
it
that's,
fails.
yeah.
and
But you're right, it can be a mix of maybe not so much in that fund and the public safety fee as well. But you keep playing, I think if we keep playing the game of going back and forth between a public safety fee and a levy, we're going to lose, the trust of our citizens.
Mhm.
I think they're going to get irritated.
Right.
You're seeing some of that in Oregon government right now. People are very irritated with our governor because she wants to repeal something that she thought was a great idea, and they're not happy about it. It's just like the stack of paper they put on their desk. They're ignoring it. Everybody is saying, we're tired of this. We're tired of it. They're tired of it in Oregon.
And I think that's where this comes to try and find a thoughtful solution that is sustainable.
Agreed.
And that is the whole point of doing this, is that being behind the 8 ball all the time, trying to catch up, we are in a hole. So the main thing, the theorem of holes, is that when you're in one, you have to drop the shovel. You have got to stop digging and do that. That's the way that goes. So that's what we're trying to do.
Advance.
Exactly. And trying
Do
to.
the right thing.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, is to say, how do we have these individual funds, businesses, maintain their own selves as we do that? Yeah, we have money that if we need to do and have it as a contingency or have it as a fund for that, we're always going to support our businesses, our funds within there. But we just have to, I think the city over time has just sort of taken it on and not done the fees and not done the, thoughtful work of saying, no, unfortunately, we can't just do that for free. We have to recoup our costs for those things. And that's why we're so much, I think, behind. And so now it doesn't feel good. I will tell you, it doesn't feel good to be in the office and people are frustrated and their water bills are high, utility bills are high. They have this fee, they have these things, but it's like, we don't have very good options now.
I think it's more important that we come up with something that is really going to sustain us 5 years, instead of what happened before, where we had a levy and we knew it wasn't going to cover, and then we had to do
Understand.
a
Yeah.
public, so it's really important that we go forward with looking for the 5 years and do it.
But our
Yeah,
citizens do support us. and
Absolutely.
I want to retain that support
Yeah.
rather than get on the other side of it where everybody's yelling at us and pointing fingers and why do you do this? Why do you do that? Kind of thing. It's,
Well-
we have control of that.
Well, and you saw they were ticked off when we did the public safety fee, but we voted wrong on the levy. I mean, we made the wrong decision on that levy amount by making it too low.
Yeah.
That was an error on our judgment. And I mean, I can say that at that time, were flying blind. We didn't have proper financial guidance. Because we had ended up in a situation where we didn't have a finance person. So
We had a complete overturning of staff. It's really nobody's fault. It's just, it happened and it happened quick. And it happened at one of the most terrible times. It happened right at COVID. And we're not the only city. Every city in Oregon is in bad shape.
Yeah.
And that
I won't
gets-
say every, but there's many cities. And it's not only in Oregon, it's all across the United States
Right.
that are having these same problems.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate.
Well, I'm going to say another thing, which is I do think that, we have to be cognizant of like what's happening at the Capitol and this other referendum on the transportation recall or whatever.
Transportation tax.
But I think we should not talk about any of these issues like in any sense of like a larger political context.
No.
Because I think we all have to be problem solvers in our community. And we are literally at the front line of, I mean, these are nuts and bolts problems. And it's sort of like you have this much money and we got all these services we have to provide that people are expecting. Of course, they want it for free and we can't do that. And so it's very basic, the kind of stuff we have to solve. And
You
so
get
I
what
think.
you pay for
Yeah.
in the end, no matter what. And if we're not
Yeah.
paying, we haven't been paying for what, and people just don't realize that the infrastructure every day gets older, another day older, and the money is not there to fix the roofs, fix the broken pipes that are in the ground right now leaking, the plants, I mean,
And this is why we're working hard now to really be forward thinking and as transparent as we can be to say, what monies can we go get? The other piece is the grant money that we keep shaking the trees for is not there as much because again, the state's in bad straits and the federal government is in straits. And so that money is not flowing like it used to. It used to be able, you could go and write the grants and do the things and manage them and you could get more of those things. And we're still, I mean, we look like we've been drugged through a knothole backwards because we're like dying, trying to just get all these things done, right? But at some level, it does have to be that sustainable look. And we have to be transparent with our citizens to say, this is what it actually costs. Because I remember a woman when we were talking about the town hall, about the public safety fee, her thing was, yes, we want to do this. Yes, I can forego the burger, 2 burgers a month, to go out. But when you do the levy, you need to make sure that it is going to cover and high enough to cover what it is you need to do moving forward. Again, because it's based on the assessed value and that does go up 3% every year, that kind of has a built-in tick up as it is. But you need to be thoughtful about what is that number so that we can go out and sell it. And again, just trying to be as transparent as a pane of glass to say, this is what it's costing. This is what we're doing. And that's
In
hard.
that, would it make sense to go with the highest number that you have down there, Ann, the 350?
It might.
Bringing in the 625, because then if
Then
it's
there's-
607 operational cost for them, then that extra can start going into a reserve fund.
for the law.
I think that
for law
could be.
enforcement, for equipment.
And I think what we'll need to do is to look at the Kaitola's numbers when they do them. They just yesterday sent us some numbers that were like a tiny bit higher than the number we had. I think it was instead of 600,000, it was more than the 607, I think. So we may be looking at a slightly higher number to begin with. The other thing that I was a little bit unclear of, which is where do courts and court costs fall? Do they fall under admin now? Did we move them from police to admin? There's some little questions like that that might have to be like a $10,000 or $20,000, like court costs, I think are 40,000. So there's some technical things that we need, like actual, we need help from those financial experts on.
Well, wouldn't the court encompass both? Because it costs for them to be there. They have to be there, and then for the
Yes,
administration to schedule and everything.
yeah, but like, it does encompass both. There's also just like, I'm talking about like, what fund does it fall under? And, like, I believe the court falls under admin or general fund.
I think it has to.
Yeah.
And it's ringing a bell that I think judge contract is in the general fund for $2,000. So I think you can't have both those branches of government kind of under the same thing. So I think
Right.
you can't have the
Right.
law enforcement and the judge and piece
But I
under the same one. So
I think maybe
that's
the
separate.
part that might be a little confused to me is that I believe, it's been a while since I pulled all the numbers from the audits, that the audits might have put public safety and courts together. But I would need to go back. So there's just like, there's some little questions about like what pot is and what. And then there's also the other piece that I don't know, like we were using, Ann Heath was projecting a trend. The Kaitolas are going to project a trend. We were using just the budget audited numbers. But, like last year, we took all of the personnel costs out of the fund and put them into, except not with law enforcement, right?
Correct. Law
Okay.
enforcement is their own standalone
So
thing
that
because
won't be
they have to
affected.
be. They can't be in the general fund because general fund is mostly for the administrative things that are helping many of the places. Me as an administrator, I boss Hank around and I boss John around and and the copy machine that sits in there, that helps support every one of the departments. So anything that's administrative is kind of the thing that helps all of them. So Marissa in the front, as she does utilities, as she does courts, as she does things, that's supporting the whole, right? So that becomes more from the general fund. Joseph with the recording and with planning, and that supports the whole of all the other things that are happening through those services. Dina doing the finances supports everyone in everything that's happening. So, but that's why, again, that water fund has to kind of stand on its own. Sewer kind of stands on its own. Police are ones that they stand on their own, which is also why you don't put citation revenues into the police, because that too, that's just.
I need clarification. You just said something that law enforcement can't be in the general fund, yet in bigger
No.
cities it is.
General fund money can flow into the police force, but we can't put your personnel into the general fund to say that this is where we're paying it out of. You're a standalone unit, just like,
So cities that do 40 or 50, 60% of their entire budget to law enforcement, big cities, I get that we don't qualify, but you're saying they have to have a subsection of the general fund that stays at the beginning of the year for law enforcement only.
that it's in general fund, but then it's transferred to the public safety fund. It's not
Okay.
paid directly from general fund dollars. It goes through into that standalone department.
And we've been doing transfers from the
Right,
general
yeah.
fund to public
Since I've been
safety.
here, yeah,
Right.
certain amount.
And that's what they do too. So this is more of the financial look at it. You don't put the police under the general fund because you are your own entity. You have your own professional levels and your own trainings and your own things that you have to do. That's a standalone legal situation that's not under
Okay.
the same budget. But yes, money from the general fund can be transferred from the general fund budget to that department, but they do have to be separate, is my understanding.
I think because Hank's correct, many cities
Mhm.
do run their police department with monies from their general fund. But some of those cities, and probably most of them, have higher tax rates than we do.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah,
property
sure.
tax rates.
Like I was saying, the average in Oregon is more like 335. And then it depends on what your assessed value is. If you're a bigger city, you just have like a way more assessed value, you know, than we do.
And I think that's what we've learned it's taken time to get here, but we're about there. I mean,
Getting there.
I have a question. Can you, thinking about how we're going to talk to the citizens about this, Chief, can you tell us what the reduction in our crime rate was when we went from 3 to 4 officers? Is it possible for you to get that kind of information?
Not now with our implosion of our database from 2023 April beyond. There's no way I could quantify that now. The
Okay.
entire database at the county level is gone.
Oh,
So I
I
can't.
wonder, there was no other, like, you know how you give us, we don't have your records as part of the minutes of our meeting. I'm just wondering if there's any other
I have written records
paper records.
I think you.
more than I should, but
That is
going
true.
back and trying to
Is it
do what
paper
she was
diary?
asking, I couldn't, normally I would jump on Justice and I would be able to compile what a date, a specific set of dates and figure out the amount of
right.
police department activities. I can't go back any farther than April of 23 now. It doesn't exist. It's gone. Since
Did
our,
you give us something like that? I'll go look back.
I feel
Seems like
you
you
did
did.
some of
You
that.
did give us something. I will look in my,
yeah, I remember our meetings last year, but
Mhm.
I could only go so far with it. I'd love to have been able to go. I know what you're talking about. And yes, that was kind of loose, but what she was asking about is crime trends. I don't even know how I would quantify.
Yeah, well, no, I'm asking about, the number of calls. I mean, yeah, has it gotten better? Can we demonstrate to the public that that additional officer has really made a difference? When we're trying
Our
to.
whole operation made a big difference because our crime rate went down. Oh my gosh, it's half what Gold Beach is now.
And that's what I'm saying. If we could have that kind of information to share.
In my case numbers alone from 14, 15, and 16, we doubled theirs. We were more, not doubled them, but we were way more than they were at Gold Beach. Now it's flipped, completely opposite. We are literally half their crime rate as far as stuff going to the district attorney's office, which is kind of what I would expect from a city this size.
And those kind of numbers would be really great to be able to refer to.
If you could pull up what you were talking about during our initial meetings months ago, that'd be pretty handy.
I have it in a box.
I do too. I do too. Then
Spare time,
probably.
I'll try to look for it, but I bet I
Yeah,
have it.
that'd be good because I remember putting together everything that I could find, but it was by paper copies. It was
I
kind of
think going
loose.
forward, if we decide to go with a levy, we really need two things for our folks, for our constituents or our community
People.
members. And that would be, what is it actually going to cost them? They just want to know a bottom line. Okay. And I think they also just want to know what they're going to get for that. And just focus on the positive,
Mhm.
rather than say, if we don't have it, we're not going to have a police department.
yeah, we don't want to do that.
And we don't want to do that. We want to say, we want to point out what we're going to get and be positive
Mhm.
to all of our, the voters. And, what are we getting? This is, and I think that's really important. It's just two things, but maybe I'm just too simplistic.
No, I need, if I'm putting together things, I totally need help on being simplistic because I tend to go deep and try to really understand it, which I think is an important value too. And that's why it's so important that we have a whole team of people that have different perspectives or can help, that different ones of us can contribute different abilities. And so that's a very good distillation of that, Sarah. I know that for the last police levy, I did some public speaking to, like the senior center and stuff. It was not very hard to talk about the positive things that we get from the police department. It goes back to some of the things we were talking about earlier, dealing with them being the first line of dealing with people that have mental illness in our community, responding to disputes or domestic violence or deaths of somebody and going, like if once start thinking about the things that they do for us and think, gosh, what if they weren't here and I had to do that? Or what, I mean,
Some of that conversation was in the meetings we had 6 months ago.
yes.
I've made a note for myself to look into some of it for her, and I know some of it was in there. We discussed it.
But one of the things I've learned from living here is the conversation is constant. And I appreciate, Hank, when you said it grates on you to be asked these questions again and again, but we're a new council. We have a lot of old councilors too, but we have new council members. We have new community members. A lot of people, our new community members, come from somewhere else and they drop in and think that they're going to be getting like full city services like some big city. They don't grasp kind of so it's like an ongoing educational project that we have to help people understand. And I think, I mean, speaking for myself, it's an ongoing educational project to just understand how all of these different funds and budgeting and all that fits together. It's a whole, municipal finance is like a whole thing. And then all of a sudden we all, as counselors and mayor and administrator, we are tasked with doing it, even though none of us are, municipal finance experts. So there's a lot to learn, but and to help educate people, I guess is what I was going to say. It's an ongoing thing. I have,
Do you want to do presentations about this before?
well, I think what we have to do is get to our plan.
Right.
And that's sort of another conversation. So before we move to, I think the way to get to the end of this meeting is I'll just ask people where they're at on this topic. But before that, I have another hard question for Hank. Are you up for it? So, because I know that we'll get asked this perhaps. So could our officers write more citations for traffic?
Not when they don't exist, when the citations aren't there, because their spare time is spent on 101 looking for just that. So, no, I'm not going to sit here and make a promise that can't be kept.
Okay, well, I'm just asking. That's because I think people would ask
Trying
that.
to fund the police department on the backs of traffic safety, it works pretty good when you've got a lot of violations in front of you. And we've already discussed the things that change that.
Yeah.
The 101 layout was a big part of it, a huge part of it, especially during the summer.
Any other questions that you guys can think of since we have Hank here to ask about that you think people might have, or you've heard people, your citizens or our citizens asking?
Couple of things that people have asked about enforcement of other things. I mean, I've had someone in the car with me and, we went by, we were down Jackson. Can the police enforcement, can they talk, like the crab place or whatever that one corner is? As far as enforcing ordinances, is that something that, you could do more of, or we could say, yes, they're working on it, or?
That's
Well, we
something
are
that
doing
we're
that.
working on
Yeah.
with planning. So until we get all the pieces in place between these guys and administration and planning, we're kind of at a standstill on that right now, but that's something that is in the works. But it has to be in coordination with planning as well.
I get that, but we will be asked that. So we can say, we're working on that there's dialogue going
Yeah.
on about that.
Can I interject for just a minute? The simple answer is the police, we in uniform aren't the ones that are going to be King Solomon on somebody's issue where 2 blocks down the road, it's not an issue. So the ultimate decision on what we enforce, which will enforce whatever the city wants us to enforce ordinance wise, comes down to the counselors and her. And then once they give us the direction they want it done, no problem. But we don't make the decisions on the dark sky ordinance of what's too dark, what's too light. What you're speaking of, 17th Street off of Jackson, it's horrible. I don't know that you can get a fire truck down part of that. I can't make the decision on how that begins, how that discussion. We'll serve the warning letters all day long to everybody who's involved in citations all day long. But the decision on how it begins and the enforcement, who deserves enforcement on those isn't ours. So, but when you're talking to your citizens, that's upstream from us on what needs to be enforced and what doesn't.
And that's something we need to, and that's, I think, what Deanna and Greg and the Planning Commission have been working on, because that's something we need to understand better, because, you know, to a citizen, it's like this local law is a law too. So, you know, why not?
There's a
So-
big difference between ORS, where we're protected when we're enforcing ORS, and ordinances, which are a civil order. And if the city gets itself in a bind and sued, that's not a good thing. You want to have all your ducks in a row, and that's beyond us. That's a you guys decision with your city attorney, and tell us what to do. We'll do it.
And get solid ordinances to back it.
Well, and that's the key. That's part of the discussion is
Yeah.
what does it take to make an ordinance enforceable by?
Right.
And, you know, we've,
But then you
gain
would
some
be able to do
experience
that. And I
with it.
think that's the key, is to say, okay, right now we're going to right away enforcement. And
That's right.
it has to be laid out clearly at the planning level and at the rule level so that you folks can do that. But then once you have that, then you can make those decisions to say, yes, this follows the code or this doesn't. And so that's what I think that's the question. So yes, I think you can say, we are working on it. We understand there are issues, and it has to be done fairly across.
Mhm.
And that's an
Part of
important component of it, but it has to be exceedingly clear to protect all of us for that. So.
So the two things I hear are the code enforcement thing, you know, people will call me, as they called me a lot when I was the mayor. Code enforcement is one of the things. So I think what I'm hearing Hank say, if we have the ordinances there that are solid, they will enforce them. So that's what planning is working on right now. So that's what we can tell the people. The other thing I hear, the biggest complaint, Hank, is speeding on secondary streets.
Yeah.
We're not seeing it out on the 101 because of the road diet, but people are cutting down from Port Orford Loop, running up Jackson at 20.
You remember the traffic study we did though?
I remember it. I have.
And it didn't really support as much as I thought it would, to be honest with you.
well, but it did support on the loop, I remember.
Loop was the one there, that's where they're cutting through. They're cutting through from down on the north end of town to the south end of town, and
Yeah.
at a higher rate every day. I was out with my son cutting a tree the other day for about 4 hours on the white line, and it was like I didn't want to take my eye off the car knowing what was going to happen. So, and it wasn't one car. It was many in those few hours. So those are the complaints I hear the most. And I think you've heard that, you know, over the years. So that's what we have to be able to discuss with people when they ask us those questions. What are you doing about that? So,
Yeah, I agree. Those are the same things I hear. The speeding is a big deal. It's a big deal.
and a lot of them cut off, was before your house, so they cut off on up 25th and,
Yeah, no, it's after my house here.
oh, it's right there. So you see probably the same thing I see. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you see some of it.
And, you know, most of the problem though is late at night.
Pardon
That
me?
I see. Most of the problem that I see from my house is late at night.
See, and I don't even get that concerned with it because I'm set back far enough my house, but I happen to be working on the white line that day and I was like, gee whiz, I can't even
Yeah.
believe that some of these people are this aggressive with their vehicles. I mean,
You just want to put up a sign that says, you know, it'll only save you 5 seconds.
no, I
You know,
wanted
just
to
slow
throw a
down.
piece of wood out.
Well,
So I won't do that.
The point is that, you know, if we're all a team, meaning the council members and the staff, and we're trying to serve our citizens, that, you know, being able to feel like, that the, officers are responsive to what the citizens' concerns are, helps us to make the case. So that's,
Can you explain to me what planning's role is in the ordinance enforcement?
well, planning is Joseph, did you want to take it? Okay.
Making sure that the ordinances are actually written in a way that makes them enforceable.
Okay,
That would be the short and simple answer to that.
hey, it's a good one.
Yeah,
Some of
very good.
them are super old, and
Mhm.
I remember one time there was something about skateboards, and it was a weird one. but-
What's your favorite one, Joseph?
My favorite one, some of you probably already heard it, the violation for operating a business without a business license is a $200 fine or up to 30 days in the city jail.
No.
That's
So-
more than a speeding ticket.
Yeah,
Well, the city jail, I was just over there the other day. It is abomination. That toilet is rusted.
Yes.
It's a
but
mess.
that kind of gets to the core of it though, is how do we enforce then someone not, how do we find someone when they can point to that and be like, okay, well, you can only fine me $200 because you definitely can't put me in the city jail. And they can use that as an argument for like, okay, well, this ordinance is so out of date, you can't enforce it.
And it would actually be really great. And I know
That's awesome.
the council has talked about this in years past and, you know, if you had more spare time to identify those things that are just insane, that we should just say, let us update like these 10 utterly insane things and update them. You know?
And the other thing with that is, sometimes these guys, sometimes they go out for enforcement and they might receive a citation for it, but people don't pay it. So that's the other piece of this that we're looking at, is how to help the city actually collect on that payment, because a lot of people just don't pay it.
Because I don't think you can arrest somebody and bring them to municipal court if I'm mistaken. So all they
Not a
gotta do is
violation,
just keep not going.
not in Oregon.
So anyway, to wrap up, we're getting close to our time here. Oh, yeah, Joseph.
So just one more thing on that, because it was coming up, a lot of other cities have in their ordinances what the violation is if you don't pay for an ordinance, and we don't have that in our code. So that's one of the things that planning will be looking at.
And that also comes to another issue that I think, as I've understood it, like turning those tickets or even old utility accounts and things like that over to collections has been something that this group had in past had been maybe resistant to. And so that hasn't been done. Although I have been on the manager's listserv, it came up today, so or yesterday, I guess, that someone said, the collection agency we work with is closing down. So what are some other options? And so I have some of those things of ones that other cities have been happy with, but that's something, again, that comes from this to say, is that something we want to do? And then I can look more into that. But I did jot that down. So again, we're still trying to find ways to,
That's part of that's
part of the whole funding
the
situation.
budgeting, proactive budgeting and thoughtful budgeting. And I actually thought, maybe I'm mistaken, that we did say we would like to look at that, but maybe if not, we could put it on the next council meeting to direct staff to bring us some options.
Well,
on
I
that.
mean, I'm doing that. I'll
right.
get those things, but I just in letting you know that that's something that we had talked about,
Yeah.
and then I will
Yeah, I
follow
think
up
we
on
can-
to that
Once you
point.
have something, that would
Yeah.
be helpful to bring.
What the statute of limitations is on ticket collection?
I don't know. I talked to Judge Milliman, and he had said, basically, if you go 5 years back and forward, that's pretty safe. The problem is we have things in there that are much older than that. The other piece that we're finding that I think that will help with, however, it used to be they could do a lien in a pretty easy way if people didn't pay their bill or whatever, but that is a big, long process, like a big legal process you have to go through. And so that has been something else that Joseph's actually been researching too, of like, what's another way we can look at that? Because our codes have to be rock solid with those things, and we are not keeping up on that to do
And,
those.
and one thing we found out too, we have all of these collections on our books from way back when.
Long time ago.
And it kind of makes things cattywampus. Like we're trying to go for this grant last year, and they were basically saying, well, you've got all this money owed to you. How come you're not why should we give you money? You've got that on your books. And we're like, well, we don't really have it on our books. So we have to, that's like another
It is.
cleanup job.
And that's what we're doing.
So we're working towards that. Okay, so to wrap this up, what I'd like to do to end this work session is just to go around the room and just get a sense from everybody about, just maybe if you could say a couple sentences about what your feelings are about going out for the levy, and if you have any concerns? Are you game on to, continue this conversation with this idea? And then maybe we should do that, and then let's have a conversation before we end on the timing. So Perry.
Don't ask me first.
Sorry, somebody has to go first.
I know. Part of me, yes, move forward on the levy. Part of me says, let's go for 350, because I think that we do have to start setting some money aside. And that might make like a $2 difference, but that heads up. Yeah, I think that's where I am.
Okay. Deanna?
I mean, for me, I think the smartest decision is to go forward with the levy. I agree with Perry about going for the higher amount, just so that we have that little bit of extra to start putting into reserves. But I also, understand that, Hank's concerns that, what happens if the voters just completely reject this? So, because it's too high.
Yeah, okay.
But I think we need to have more of a what we can do attitude instead of we can't. Because I think that might be part of what happened with the last one. Was the language was, well, we can't because they're not going to go for it.
Counselor Burns?
Yeah, I go for the 350. Levy to have it. Because costs are going to go up, and there's going to be equipment and cars and things down the road, and the only place will be to take it out of the general fund. And it's just not there to take out. I mean, when you think of all the roofs that need to go on, and now because the roofs are so shot, now the walls are shot, and there's going to be rebuilding when we finally get to it, that money is not in the general fund now. I don't know where that's going to come.
Well, yeah, okay. So, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence on the 340, 350, just because we want to be really, first off, we want to be really transparent.
Mhm.
We really want to tell, like, for a $200,000 home, it's going to be, $340, is that right? $340, something like that. Yeah, I've been using my calculator. So that's real important. And I know that that's going to be our biggest uphill battle, will be the cost, the additional cost right now, because things are kind of, are tough overall for a certain segment of our homeowners, I think. So that's why I'm kind of, even though it's only $10, it's like, And we just really do need to have to focus on the positive. I mean, I hear comments, and you're not going to like to hear this, and it's, the thing about when two police cars are sitting together, I know you're doing business. Yeah, I know you're doing everything, but I hear often, they're just, there was a joke about the tree, it kind of was around. But anyway, we have to really sell, that's not what they do all day, But when you see the two cars together.
But part of selling that is remembering that these guys are on call 24/7. So even when they're off, they're still on.
Right.
So like, even when my husband signs out at night and comes home,
Right.
he's still on call. And he's on call like on a Friday when on a Friday when he gets off, he's on call until noon on Saturday. So, when people think that they're not doing anything.
Right. They are. We know they are. We know, but I bet they don't know how much they have to be on call. That they, that they have to work till 11, 12 o'clock at night, or that they can, have
Or
to
they're
get up.
going out at 2 o'clock in the
Right.
morning and not getting home, not coming back till 5 o'clock in the morning because
Right.
of whatever call they had to go out on.
Exactly. But I only brought that up, not to get any hackles up,
No, I know.
honestly. It was just something that's, I don't want to focus on that,
Yeah, but I think and I mean, I was kind of asking that leading question earlier of let's ask Hank the hard questions because we know we've heard from people these things. And so what's the answer to that? You can help us understand that better. Like, well, what is going on when two cars are sitting there, then we
There's no
know what to
business.
say, or then you hear, well, that's a perception people have because we're hearing it from people. So,
Yeah.
it's sharing
wanna
information
dispel that.
transparently.
And that's just how this thing is going to get passed.
Counselor Pogwizd?
I said from the start, the levy would have to double. So I'm okay at 340, 350. I mean, it is what it is. It's each and every one of us and each and every citizen is going to have to dig deep and decide what kind of protection and,
One of the
Yeah.
good things I think is that this would remove the $12 fee and everybody's going to really like that.
And we
I think
said
we
we
need to
would
point
do
that
it,
out.
and that's
Yeah.
why we're here, I think, is we said that we would next year do this, and that we would, if the levy passed, remove it, and I think that's part of future levies. I mean, we have to be honest, we have to do what we're saying we're gonna do, and I think that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
so
my
we're,
biggest reason for being here tonight.
yeah, and so we're going to be running out of time with this very important timing question looming. So, the benefit of doing it sooner is that we get it done, we focus, we get it done, we have it for the next, we get to take the public safety fee off, we get to have a clear budgeting idea. If it turns out that this transportation bill is on the budget in May, people are going to be like, probably, there's going to be a significant chunk of people who are going to be like voting against taxation. So that's something to consider. I don't know how it will go, if it's going to be a partisan thing or if it's just going to be an anti-tax thing. Because it could be,
It seems
I don't know
anti-tax.
how it's going to be. I don't know.
That's what
So-
it seems.
But we get another bite of the apple in November.
We would get another bite of the apple in November, but if they voted it down in May, could we go back in November? If we wait till November, we wait. Will we get through all the budgeting? We're going to do our best on it. We're going to have to keep the fee all through the summer. The Kaitolas might have more time to understand our circumstance. But we're putting it off and if we don't pass it in next November, I mean, this is the thing, like that $12 fee, that was like a total Band-Aid to get us through. And we're already at the edge. And that's the thing that I'm worried about is like, could we do that even? Like, and that would be maybe a good question for the Kaitolas is, if we're thinking about these different timeframes of trying to do it in May, November, or even the next May, because we don't want to, actually the next May I don't know if hopefully the next May will be okay, but that may not be one of these general elections because
That won't be the primaries.
it won't be the primaries. So we might,
7+ to do it and run it down.
Yeah.
My thoughts are, I said this last time we ran a levy, let's not put that kind of stress on our police guys. I mean, we want them to know that a levy passed and that they can support their families. Let's not drag it out.
And that we support them.
Yeah, and then absolutely.
And it also allows us to have kind of backdoor, we'll have more funds because, they're paying for it, but we can focus more on our infrastructure, maybe more for public works, because we're not taking from the general fund. It's kind of a sketchy way, but.
well, and that may or may not, I mean, basically the thing that we learned from Ann Heath is that if things are in the general fund and we have like a little bit of a pot, if something's needed and they don't have money there, any general fund can help with anything. So that's why it's good to have that. So am I hearing that the consensus would be then to lean towards the May? Despite this, without,
My biggest reasoning is what I just said about putting our guys through a lot of stress. But, you know, I mean, maybe they decide not to hang on. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
A job opens over here and they don't really want to go, but they're worried that our thing might, you know, if we drag it out. I don't know. We have to strategically look at it. I don't know how this transportation tax is going to factor into it.
I think everything hinges on that for the
I-
next
I
couple of
do-
weeks.
I do.
well, here's the thing. We don't have to make that decision right now. Maybe what we do is why don't we plan to move forward with the idea that we're going to do it in May?
You can't make
Because
a decision right now, though, so. just-
No, we're not going to make a decision. But if we proceed on the path of thinking that's what's going to happen, then we can make a decision later. Because
Sure.
whether we do it in May or November, we have to do the work to come up with the ballot language. We have to consult with the Kaitolas to get the better numbers so that these numbers that we took, which were our best efforts, just to make sure everything, you know, there's more stuff to do before we pull it all together. But even if we could get farther along by the end of February and then we decide, you know, we don't want to do it in May,
Still
We'd-
good work.
we'd be all ready
Right.
and then we just put it on a shelf and bring it back out.
When in February does the language have to be in?
It has to be in the very last, like the
Okay.
7th
Okay.
or something?
27th for
So-
approval.
So hopefully you'll get a little bit of information from the finance people
Mhm.
before
sure.
that time, and then we
Next week.
can really. you know,
So here's the next question. So what are we going to do? We have a council meeting in like the middle of February, because a lot of council meetings, I'm just going to warn you this year, because of the way January 1st fell on a Thursday, we're going to have a lot of council meetings that are going to sneak up earlier. The first council meeting is going to be the 19th of February.
So 4 weeks.
And so that would be a meeting at which we could pass language, like if we wanted to agree, make a decision and agree on ballot language. So we may want to have another work session or something on the 12th so that we can present perhaps more information from the Kaitolas, or if there's any more, and that
Maybe the three of us could get together
do a draft ballot stuff.
to give the council some ideas of
Yeah.
choices. And
Would that work for people
On the 12th?
on the 12th to pencil that in?
Sure. It works for me. I don't know about you guys.
You guys okay with
Yeah,
that?
I don't know either.
I've got my, it's clear. on-
And honestly, this is the beginning. We had to do this last year too. We worked our tails off all from like January to June last year. It's like the beginning of the budget season, trying to squeeze juice out of turnips left and right. And, so we did that. And then kind of the end of last year, staff was continuing to work on these things, but we had less work to do as a council because we were like, okay, you guys do all this work. So I think we're kind of back into that deal where we're now, this is going to be a work time. We got to like figure out some of these big things. So even though
Is
none of
that
us,
February 12th at 5:30?
can we make that decision, or is that a decision?
So technically, no, you cannot make that decision, but
Okay.
what I would say is that under our charter, the mayor or a collection of counselors can call for a work session. So you're calling for a work session after receiving feedback from this discussion.
Yeah, okay. So I will do that. Thank you, Joseph, for helping to keep us in the street. We're pretty much at time here before we end. Does anybody have anything further to say?
Can I say
think
something?
Most
No,
of
go ahead.
us have the same feelings, all of us have the same feelings. We appreciate our police department, and I believe our citizens do as well. So let's get our verbiage right and not have a repeat of what happened years ago. So that's it. You got to get that verbiage right, and you got to explain why you need the money. And quite frankly, $1.80, 12, 14 years ago isn't $1.80 today. It's just matter of fact. inflation the last few years has been an absolute killer to everybody. I don't care how much money you have. It's not been good.
Right.
So we, we're going to ask people to dig deep and support what we continue to have.
You want to say?
I just, not on this topic, I did just want to say thank you so much for the counselors and families that came to help paint and do all that this last weekend. It was wonderful and the staff is really excited and I just really, really, really appreciate that. It just, that was a good morale boost and I just am so thankful for the level of volunteering that you folks do that's just from the heart. So thank you very much. That was.
I think
that was
we
awesome.
should hire out to raise money.
I'm telling you what, yeah, we could put the painting crew on.
The Council Bluffs painting crew.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, well, excellent. Thank you all for giving this your good thoughts. And, if you have any questions about the things like the materials that were presented or want to dig in, don't hesitate to reach out. And also if we have any more questions that come up that we want answers to, give them to
Let me know.
Melissa
Mhm.
and then we can make sure we get the answers to those questions because, or if you have questions you think citizens might ask us. So we'll figure it out. So thank you all for your good thoughts. Thanks, Hank, for coming and joining us.
Thank you for doing all of this.
Yes,
These are really helpful.
Great.
bang your gavel.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
and as we're ending this meeting, thank you. I need the help at 7:35.